So tonight we got the owner of Westchester Barber and Beauty Academy. Now I want y'all to see this video, Mr. Charnay, but he's gonna be coming to us tonight. But this is a really great video of why we should become school owners to change lives. Hold on, here we go.
Back just a little bit. Charnay Fair is a cut above the rest. He's the founder and executive director of the Westchester Barber Academy in Mount Vernon, New York, a place built on much more than just hair. For folks who have not been to a black barbershop, how would you describe it to a stranger?
It's a little bit of everything. It's the only place where you can have an elected official, a pastor, and a street pharmacist all in a room and everybody gets along.
Charnay grew up the youngest of 7. His parents divorced when he was just 3.
So my father on the weekends for the next 5 years. Then he passed away of HIV. 4 years after that, when I'm 12, my oldest brother passed away of HIV. So you take the breadwinners away from the family, you can only imagine what the next couple of years looks like. We lived in the projects for a little bit. We got evicted twice. Sometimes lights be cut out for weeks at a time. So you learn those survival skills.
How did you get into barbering? How did you discover?
You got to take it back
Okay,
just a little bit.
so I'm gonna stop that right there. That gives y'all a little glimpse of what y'all in for tonight. So we got Charnay on here. All right. That video was very inspiring. I really enjoyed that video. I got to repost it on my page. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time out, but let's go back to your childhood, Charnay. We know a little bit, but go all the way back and let's step this up because we got 60 minutes and we want to take all of that from you.
All right. Well, listen, thank you for having me, Chen. I'm excited to be here. Yeah, man, my story's pretty unique. And, you know, my mom came to this country from Haiti when she was 14. By the time she was 19, she was married to my father and pregnant with my oldest brother. Parents stayed together about 12, 13 years. They got divorced when I was 3. I saw my father on the weekends for the next 5 years till he passed away of HIV. And then 4 years after my father passed away of HIV, my brother passed away of HIV also. So this was when I was 8 and 12. This was in the 80s when if you got HIV, there wasn't no Magic Johnson fertility drugs to extend your life longer. If you got HIV in the 80s, there was a death sentence. So like I said before, you can only imagine what the next couple of years look like. I'm the youngest of 7 children. Okay, and in the way that we were born in my family is boy, girl, 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 then me. So you know, losing my father, losing my oldest brother. I had one older brother. Education was always big in my family. So no matter what, my mom was like, all right, y'all go to school. We struggling right now, but y'all go to school. I'm telling you, it's gonna pay off. Just keep staying your books, everything. And, you know, when you're going through family problems, you're not necessarily here. It's not hitting you how it's supposed to hit you, you know, like someone said before, hungry bellies can't hear, you know, so but in time, she was absolutely right. So the next couple of years, man, was rough. When I tell you rough, I'm from the hood of the South Bronx. You hear it in hip hop, South Bronx, South Bronx. That's where I'm from. So when you think about losing both the breadwinners of the family, we lived in the projects for a few, we was on welfare for a few, we lived in a shelter for a few, but there's opportunity in the darkest of places, man. If you just trust the process, you know, I actually picked up a pair of clippers because all of my siblings were going away to college. Like I said, education was big in my house, but, you know, my older brother used to cut my hair and he wasn't like on barber quality. He was just good enough to not get me laughed at school. So when it came to him going away to college, he left a pair of clippers behind, and I would try to fade my hair and line it up before I just cut it all off. And you know, I was in the shelter at the time, and you know, this lady saw me before I cut my hair, and then she saw me after I cut my hair, and she's like, who just cut your hair? I just saw you a little while ago. And I was like, I did it myself. And she's like, hello, I have 4 boys upstairs. They all need haircuts. And I'm like, I don't really cut hair like that. She's like, I want it like yours. And I was like, all right, I can do that. So next thing you know, I'm in the shelter cutting hair, just giving people baldies. That was my thing. I was the baldy king. I might have been the goat of the baldy back then. But yeah, I developed a following where, people just wanted to have it all taken down, and I hated being the youngest of 7 kids. And I started to look at life as like the show American Ninja Warrior. And I said to myself, if you could see 6 people go ahead to do a task that you're eventually going to do, my time needs to be the best time and I need to have the best outcome. And somehow innately, I knew that even at age 15, that me being a barber, I would always have access to male role models. So with my father gone, my oldest brother gone, I still have my older brother. I got to see, manhood on display at the barbershop. So I kind of took bits and pieces to say, hey, I like this man. He's a good businessman. I like this guy, how he is with his family. I like how he treats his wife. So I kind of just started taking little bits and pieces, a little bit of everybody's swag, and kind of incorporated that in myself while learning the trade of barbering.
Now, what was high school like? Tell us about high school.
High school was cool, for me. I had my first summer youth job, and once I was able to work, I never looked back. I had my summer youth job, and then later on, I worked at a yogurt store, a frozen yogurt store, while I was learning how to become a barber. And with each paycheck, I was buying different things. I was buying different powders, different sprays, different clippers, everything. Each paycheck I was investing in my craft. And, during high school, I really didn't have, I was a big sports guy. I loved to play basketball, but I didn't have time because I was working 2 jobs and going to school. So for me, it got to a certain point where me working 2 jobs was like, Ma, I got the light bill this month. I got the telephone bill this month. What groceries we need. And for me, that was a rite of passage. I know a lot of times you hear stories like this coming from the hood, and people are usually saying, Ma, I got the groceries, but they're selling drugs. Nah, that was not me. It was an honest living. And it's like I said, for me, it was a rite of passage because I was in a position to be able to support my mom. So for high school, for me, I've always been a pretty good student. For me, my family background, school was it for me. Like, school was where I was safe, where there was meals, where the girls were, everything. School, you asked me, I knew that I had so much life experience. I had more life experience than some of my teachers who were teaching me. So you asked me to read a book, no problem. I lost my father. I lost my brother. My family was in a shelter. We lived in the projects. We was on welfare. You asked me to read a book in a quiet space, no problem. So for me, high school was pretty cool. Got to earn my own money and kind of spend it on the things that I deemed to be priorities at the time. And I went to these older barbers, like the movie Coming to America, where you got Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall in their 60s, and they're cutting hair. These guys were regular guys in my neighborhood in the Bronx. So, I attached myself to older mentors, people who could have been my grandfathers. And I brought my boys in from high school to the shop. And as long as I listened to what the barber had to say and follow his instructions, my boys got a good cut every week. I got practice. Within 6 months, I was on the cutting customers.
So did you go to barber school, do the apprenticeship? Tell us about that.
I got serious about cutting hair when I was 15. So you needed to be in New York State. You need to be 17 years old to enroll in a barber school and get a license. So I did a 2-year apprenticeship, and for me that worked because I had guys who were going to barber school, but they had to share the instructor or the assistant instructor with 14, 15 other people. For me, I was the only person, and there was 4 barbers in that shop. So I got a little bit of swag from everybody, from different people, and they all poured into me. So within 2 years, I was on to cutting customers.
So, okay, so 2 years now, you own the cutting the customers, you're certified. Tell us what's next.
So for me, I actually started taking up barbering because I was looking at my older siblings going away to college, calling home, and they were broke. They were going away to college and they were broke. So for me, I was like, I don't want that to be me. I don't want to be in a situation where we're struggling again. So my older brother said, "Listen, I think you're onto something with this cutting hair stuff." And I'm like, "Really? Is that gonna make me money when I go away to college?" He's like, "What?" He's like, "Listen to me. If you become a full-fledged barber by the time it's time for you to go away to college," he said, "the campus will eat you alive, literally." And me being the youngest of 7 kids, you only had to tell me something one time. So that's why I got serious about cutting hair. So you know, one thing I do want to say is around 11th grade, I took my foot off the gas in terms of my academic achievement, and I slowed up, and by the time it was time for me to catch up, it was like, oh man, I got to go to summer school. So I actually had to go to summer school to graduate high school, and I didn't get into the colleges that I wanted to because my grades were too low. They weren't terrible, but they weren't competitive at all. So I did a year at a community college here in New York, and then after that, I transferred to Stony Brook University out in Long Island. And once I got there, I one thing, my older brother has always been a constant influence in my life. We're 7 years apart. But one thing that he did was when he faced the obstacle and he couldn't conquer the obstacle, he would give me the pointers, but from where he left off. So he would tell me, "Listen, I wasn't successful to be able to do this, but if you do X, Y, and Z, I think you could make this, something that you can do." So, he told me about becoming a barber, and I used to go visit him on the weekends. I had my little campus job. I was kind of fly back then. And yeah, I was just looking at campus on display. And when it got time for me to go away to college, I knew exactly what to do. And everything he said was true tenfold. When it got to the campus, I had to literally tell people, "Listen, I got to go to class. I got to study. I can't cut hair all day. These are my hours." And the folks that were really smart about it knew exactly where my last class was on a Thursday, and they walked back with me to my dorm room to be first in line.
Hmm. So now you're in college, cutting all his hair. What's next?
I mean, I want to, kind of get into that story a little bit, because for me, coming from public school, New York education, and then going to, this university, I didn't feel like I was college material. I felt that, there were kids my age running circles around me, and I'm asking them in class, like, you understand this? They're like, "Yeah, we learned that in high school." So for me, when I first got to college, I didn't feel I was college material, but I did get enamored with, everybody calling my name, me cutting hair, me playing, recreation basketball, partying and everything, that I almost failed out my first year and I got put on academic probation. And for me, it was either uh, go back to the hood or figure it out. Right. So, for me, it kind of helped hone my business skills a little bit, because I'm seeing all the athletes, and I'm like, yeah, that's my work. Some of my college professors would come to my dorm bathroom to get a haircut, which was illegal to do. And that, and when I'm seeing them in class, I'm like, yeah, I cut him too. I cut him too. And then the girls was coming to me, I was cutting them, doing their eyebrows, everything. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna give all of this up. Number one, this is it for me. So I figured it out. I became college material, and I had to go back into my foxhole. And like I said, with me having all this life experience, and you put a book in front of me, I had to buckle down and I had to get serious and police my territory.
Okay, so years went by in college. Tell
Yep.
everybody what your major was.
So undergrad was liberal arts, which is a general degree, but then I stayed for my master's degree, and I got a master's in HR management.
And then how was your mama feeling about this?
My mom was feeling great about this. You know, she never really had to worry about me because she knew I was prepared. I never had to call home and ask for money. I would call home and like, hey, Ma, you good? You know, you know, how her last child, you know, finishing up the process. It's funny, when my oldest brother went away to college, my mom cried, and I remember that. And when I went away to college, dry eyes. I was like, "Oh, you're not gonna cry?" She's like, "No, no, you got it, you got it." But I'll never forget, for Mother's Day, the year that I graduated with my master's, I gave her both my degrees, and the tears just started flowing, man.
Mm. How did that feel?
It felt great for me because, you know, growing up the youngest of seven, you know, I knew that I wasn't going to be the one to mess everything up. So the pressure was definitely on me, and I put the pressure on myself to make sure that I had the best outcome in all of this. So, you know, I continued to press forward.
So then after you finish your master's, did you go work a job, go to corporate America? Tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So my first job out of college was in the human resources department as an HR admin for Whole Foods Market before it was this big company. So I always maintained a full-time job. I maintained that job for 4 years. And then I still kept my skills sharp, cutting my nephews, you know, friends around the way, people from church, and you know, going back to the barber shop every now and then, but keeping my skills sharp. But for me, I after that job ended at Whole Foods, you know, I decided to open a barbershop because I said I can never let anyone be in charge of 100% of my income ever again. And I was young, and basically I was, you know, I didn't have any wife. I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids at the time. And I'm always thinking ahead. So I said, I can't let anybody be in 100% of in charge of 100% of my income. So I opened up a barbershop while I was working another full-time job. So had that job I had that shop for 5 years. But all throughout, I kept changing jobs. Every 2 to 3 years, I was changing jobs. And now looking back at it, you know, when you operating outside of your purpose, it's not going to work. You know, so a friend of mine gave me the best piece of advice, and he's known for telling people off. So when he's like, you know what your problem is, I kind of brace myself like that. And he said something that was really profound. And he said, you're a leader that just happens, you're a leader who is working for followers who just happen to be in a leadership position. And unless you make a follower who just happens to be in a leadership position comfortable with how they're managing you, they're always going to have a problem with you. So at that point, I was like, wow, I'm playing too small. You know, I have all of this life experience, number one. I have a trade and my education. And I wanted to make sure that I pursued both lanes because I never wanted to be broke again. And then, you know, I had this experience working different jobs, corporate America and everything, and in the HR department. And human resources really showed me how to really just get ingrained in every aspect of the company and see how it works. So yeah, so you know, had the barbershop for 5 years, and then, you know, met a lovely young lady who is my wife now. We got married, and then 2 years later had my daughter, and then after that we had my son. And I realized that working a full-time job, being involved with the barbershop, and being super active in church. You know, when I was at the shop made money. When I wasn't there, it didn't make money. So 7 days a week would go by, and I really didn't have much to show for it. So I never wanted to be one of those guys who became great at the expense of their family. I wanted to be one of the guys who became great as a result of the family. So I closed my barbershop at the time, didn't sell the equipment, anything. I just closed it, packed up the equipment, put it in my basement, built a little barbershop in my garage, still cut people from church. And then I became the director of one of the local charter schools out here. And at that time, it was kids in fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade um, at that school, and some of the boys were getting in trouble on purpose just to spend one-on-one man time with me. I would be the guy who would be snatching lunch breaks, right? So, like, what'd you say? Grab your lunch. You're not eating with your friends. You eat with me, and then we sit down and we talk. We talk about decision making and everything. And when I realized that I was in the office too long, I was like, let me figure something out to spend some time with these young brothers. And thought that barbershop equipment that I had in my basement, I pretty much built a barbershop inside the school, so inside the charter school. So I taught kids in fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade how to cut hair. And regardless of how they acted in anybody else's class, you could hear a pin drop. You teach kids from the hood how to make money. As soon as they're willing to learn, you can hear a pin drop. So I use the intimacy of the barbershop and of a haircut, just to continue to mentor them. One of the guys is still with me to this day. He was 13 at the time, and now he's 20, and he has a chair in my shop.
So when did you start thinking about getting a barber school?
Great question. So my first barbershop that I had when I started it when I was 27. I realized that the hardest part was getting people. It's either you actually have you could teach someone from the ground up and get that loyalty, or you can hire somebody that has a following but a big ego and a lot of bad habits. So I went through both of those cycles, and I said, you know what, it's hard to get barbers, right? It's hard to get barbers who are serious. I need to be able to control the pipeline somehow, some way. And I heard stories about opening the barber school, and people are putting their own limitations on you. Well, oh, you need a ridiculous amount of money to open the school, and it's a tough process and everything. But for me, like I said, I'm comfortable in books. I'm comfortable applying my life experience and applying it to books. So eventually I put this down as something that I would do, where I would open a barber school. And you got to write it down. You got to goal set. You got to put yourself on a realistic timeline. So for me, I always said that I was going to do it. But when I started the after school barbering program at the charter school, I said, listen, if I could teach kids in fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade how to cut hair, I can teach anybody. So actually, I did it out of the love. I started this program out of the love to spend time with some of these brothers and develop them, to mentor them. But it actually was a blessing in disguise. I always say that if you give, you never have to worry. If you make a culture of giving, you don't ever have to worry about receiving. So the after school barbering program was the pilot for me to do what I'm doing now. And that gave me the blueprint to open up a barber school. Like I said, I was in charge of the business aspect of the charter school. So all of the business came from my team, me and my team. So I knew how to run the school. And then I had barbering, and life put me in a position where I had to figuratively empty out my pockets, and I had to put my cards on the table. I had barbering, I had HR experience, I had my experience how to run a school. And, I couldn't keep going to my wife every 2 to 3 years saying, oh, yeah, I got let go today, or I'm leaving this job. It wasn't sustainable. So, like I said, it put me in a position where I was like, all right, what you got? And I had barbering experiences at the charter school, HR, my personality, which I usually always develop a following because of that. I'm a people person. And next thing you know, I'm rearranging the pieces, and I was like, this is it. You know, it's time for me to start my own school. I was playing too small all the time. I was trying to fit into other people's situation. And, you know, me, I'm thinking that I'm adding value because I'm the guy who keeps everybody together. I'm keeping everybody working hard. Hey, all right, it's not that bad. Let's do this, everything. And to an insecure leader, they're threatened by that. So, you know, when it came to working with insecure leaders, they're like, all right, well, you know, everybody respects him. They don't respect me. And if I want to get somebody's attention, that's the guy I need to take out to shake everybody up.
Now, how did you come up with the name?
Good question. Just, you know, talking to different people. I had a guy who wanted to do a barber school before. He actually did do a barber school that got adopted by one of the universities out here in New York. And he basically was guiding me through the process whenever I had questions. And he was like, all right, well, you know, I was thinking about putting it in my last name and everything. He was like, no, you need to kind of think a little bit bigger than that. And, you know, just make it for, you know, the county or something like that. So, you know, I'm mulling over different names and everything. And, you know, he's like, yeah, between the second and third one, you might be on to something. So, you know, I kind of slept on it a little bit. And then next thing you know, I came up with the name Westchester Barber Academy.
Now, you got a really nice logo. Tell us about that logo.
Oh, thank you, man. It's funny. This logo came to life because of the art teacher in my charter school that I worked at. And as I was going through the process, still working, but I always kept the discomfort of having to change jobs. Even when things were going really well at one job, I was like, all right, it's just a matter of time. Around that 2 to 3 year mark, it's gonna start going south. And I was always right. And so when I was at the charter school, I started planning to open a barber school. So on my lunch breaks, you know, I'm eating, but I'm actually reading up on the process to open a barber school. Then after that, there was a sweet spot when my wife and kids went to sleep, and when I went to sleep, it was like a 2 hour mark. So every night, you know, after a while, every night I was doing something else for the business. But in terms of this logo right here, I sat with one of the art teachers and I sketched it out, some of the things that I was looking for. And I sketched out this, but he's the one that made it come to life.
Now, when you were leaving these jobs every 2 to 3 years, tell us about how you were feeling and then how you would approach your wife and what she would say.
Great question. Listen, I'm married to a sister, so you know, whenever I went to my wife and said, "Listen, you know, I left this job or I got let go," you know, she would be upset not at me, but she'd be upset at the person. Like, y'all don't see his potential. You know, why does this keep happening and everything? And so she was pretty upset, but you know, she didn't have to be upset at me to know that you know, I was going to take things seriously. You know, I think men and women see the world differently in some cases. And in terms of her, I saw a little bit of disappointment in her eyes, but I saw more so worry in her eyes. She didn't grow up how I grew up, you know. For me, I could be I could take on a lot and have, you know, not get frazzled with things. But to her, it's like, all right, whoa, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna pay our bills? How are we gonna pay our mortgage and everything? So, you know, at the end of the day, I knew that God would provide, but I had to do my work also. I couldn't have faith without works. You know, Bible says faith without works is dead. So I couldn't just say God will provide and me sit on my tushy and not do anything. So for me, all types of emotions, you know, ran through my head, and I was just like, you know, at a certain point, I got down on myself, and that's when my friend gave me that piece of advice, and you know, I said to myself, this is going to be a long process for me to start my own thing, but I'm going to fall in love with the process, number one. And then if I could control it, I'm never going to be in this position again. I'm not going to put my family in this position again. And listen, I was in HR, so I found that some of the companies that I was working for, I have a high moral compass. A lot of these companies did not. They were just concerned with their bottom line. So for me, that always put me at odds, being in human resources, being the person that's going to make sure that things are equitable, in terms of the company. But then the company's looking at me like, all right, well, we're paying your salary. This needs to spin the way we want it to spin. So for me, I was constantly caught at odds, but I always chose to obey my moral compass. But getting back to your question, in terms of seeing my wife's reaction and everything, I just wanted to make sure that I never put her or my family in this situation.
Now, with the school, so now you're going through the process, doing all your paperwork and everything. You found your building, you put your equipment in and doing all of that. And you finally get open.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. Now that the school is open, what'd you do? How'd you get students? Who was working? Tell us about that.
Well, I'll take a step back for a second. Getting to school was a process, right? For me, I stopped my educational experience at the master's level. My wife went to get her PhD, and I'm always observant. I'm always looking. And while a PhD for everyone is a prestigious degree, I looked and saw that if I got a PhD, I couldn't pass that on to my kids. And another person gave me a great piece of advice. He said, both parents should not be punching a clock. He said, one works a job and has the benefits and has the stability of a paycheck, and the other one should have a business. This way, your income can go up. But and if it goes down, you have the stability of that spouse having a stable job. So just knowing that, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go all in with the school, and I'm talking things out with my wife as I'm cutting hair in the garage. I'm talking to some of my clients. They're like, I think that's a great idea. And for me, honestly, I didn't start because it does take a lot of money to open a school. It takes a lot of time. Also, the process in New York is so rigorous that you are not going to get through it unless this is really what you want to do. Okay, so it's gonna take something from you. Like it's gonna, people always say what they want to do and everything, but the question that you need to ask yourself is, what are you willing to give? Okay, are you willing to sacrifice your time, your fun nights, or whatever it is that you're into, just to fall in love with the process? So after a while, for me, I would go out with my friends. We might go to a bar or something like that, and I'm sitting there at the bar having a drink in my hand, and I'm like, wait, I wonder if I just change this on the Excel spreadsheet and everything. And they're like, hey, you there? You there? And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry. I'm thinking about the process. So after a while, I was like, you know what? On a Friday, I'm grabbing a drink and I'm on my laptop after my kids go to sleep, my wife and kids go to sleep. And every week I kept chipping away at it. I'm on my lunch break, chipping away at the process. When I got off of work and handled my father and husbandly responsibilities, I'm back on my laptop chipping away at the process. So before you know it, it got smaller and smaller. And when the governing agency said to me, all right, we received your application, you got this amount of things that you got to fix. So each time I fixed it, it got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I got to the point where they were like, all right, this is done. We're on to the next task. So I've always, like I said, I've always been a student. So for me, I was able to chop it up in bits and pieces and just focus on the long game. Didn't get frustrated with the slow process. But another thing that I did was I started with contracts. Instead of jumping right in, opening a barbershops, jumping right in, opening a barber school, I went to places where people are confined to a space for whatever reason. So I went to nursing homes and I cut hair in the nursing home, and there was no overhead there. So for me, cutting hair at a nursing home, then going on to a group home. And then later on, we landed a big fish with Rikers Island, which is unfortunately one of the most notorious jails out here in New York. But for us, it was a way of shining a bright light in a dark place by teaching them how to cut hair, showing them that they had transferable skills. But basically, as I was working as a director of a charter school, I worked for Westchester Barber Academy, my company, for 3 years without taking a salary. So all of that, all of those checks, all of those payments from going to these sites and cutting hair or teaching how to cut hair, that went right into a business bank account. And when it got time for me to actually open up a school, I had the revenue to show that I had the entire year's worth of operating expenses. I was able to pay the fees because I had this budget. I had this money sitting in the business bank account.
Now, when you opened a school, how many workers did you have, employees?
When I opened the school, so in 2018, we opened the barber shop. And we opened the barbershop because we would work in so many different places. They're like, all right, well, where's your shop? We want to come support you. So knowing that I still had contracts, that just in case people didn't come to the shop, the contract still supported the overhead. So for me, really, it was we opened in 2018. And then while we were opening the barbershop, we were telling our customers and everyone that we're going to open a barber school, and was going through the process. So I had about 2 staff members in the barbershop, and then I hired 1 person for the barber school to teach. And he was the instructor at Rikers Island. So while he was at Rikers, he basically was honing his craft on how to become an instructor. And when we started our school, we had 2 students, right? But I was satisfied with that, because I wanted to squeeze every bit of juice from this fruit. And I knew that, you know how they say, you got to spend money to make money. You got to, movement attracts movement. So when it came to me having 2 students, that was all I needed. One of the things that I loved about social media was that you really can't tell how many people's in the room, when you're filming, right? So I had 2 students, and I would take videos and pictures of them, all different angles, everything, and I was just telling the story, because one thing I'll say, people love to be able to say that they've been with you, they've been ride or die with you from the beginning. They'll say, hey, listen, I remember when you was in barber school. I remember when you was messing up everybody's head. Now look at you. You got now you got 2 schools, now you got 3 shops, all of those things. So for me, telling the story, and I think people always want to root for the underdog. So for me, telling the story was really important. I had a lot of people that supported me through church, through my community, everything, and it was just beautiful. So now, fast forward, this is, even though Westchester Barber Academy is having a lot of success, this I'm not trying to keep any of this to myself. I'm trying to spread the word. I'm trying to clear a path, because also one thing is that in this world, racism shows up, but racism also shows up in hair, right? So when it comes to natural hair, when it comes to locks, all of this stuff, a lot of beauty schools are showing how to do hair, but they weren't showing how to do textured hair. So for me, I wanted to make sure that I affected change within my own small perimeter in this place of the world, this part of the world.
Now, how did you grow the school? How did you get more students? Because we got potential school owners on here, then we got some school owners already. So tell us about that part.
So I advertise a lot on social media, through pictures, video, everything, and yeah, that was the way that I did things, word of mouth. And for me, we weren't accredited yet. We're still going through the process of accreditation, but I did notice that there were a couple of organizations that if you got certified with them, they would pay for tuition. So one of those organizations was Access VR, and they if you had any type of documented disability, they would actually help you, help students. They'll pay the full tuition for a student. And then I got certified with the Department of Labor. So as a vendor, because in all actuality, the Department of Labor doesn't want to keep anybody on unemployment benefits, right? So if they could go to school, they had a budget that would help people, that'll help train people to to enroll in school. And then for some of the folks that's coming home from jail, there was also post-release funds where if they were serious about changing their life, they had money to be allocated to pay for school. So that pretty much helped us tread water. And honestly, in all actuality, I can't say that it was any one particular thing that we did that really brought in the increase of students. We were just everywhere. We were cutting hair at back to school events for free. We still do that for free sometimes, most of the time. We were passing out flyers, going to churches, and in Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is 4 square miles, and we have 44 barbershops in these 4 square miles, and we have twice as many churches. So when you think about places where people gather, those were the places. So I use that to spread word of mouth, flyers, and just kept posting videos about the students, and just doing different things. We did a barber camp for young kids. We did a braider camp during the summertime where we took kids for a week every day for 5 days, showed them how the fundamentals of cutting hair, how to style themselves. So we really just got ingrained in the process. And honestly, we fell in love with the process so much that we stopped paying attention to, all right, well, if this person comes or if this person doesn't come. We just knew that we were doing things, and next thing you know, the phone was consistently ringing, people consistently stopped by. I also made sure that we were able to be found. We got MWBE certified, which is the certification for a minority business. And when here in New York, once you got certified as a minority business, that changes things because there were new laws that came out where 30% of the city's business had to go to minorities. And that becomes a different conversation because most of the organizations here operated off of a zero budget base. So meaning that if they had a budget, let's say they had $40,000 to spend on an after-school barbering program. If they only spent $20,000 on the after-school barbering program, the next year they're only getting $20,000 because the last year they left $20,000 on the table. So once we became MWBE certified, it changed a lot because now we had organizations calling into us to say, hey, listen, I have X amount of dollars left in my fiscal budget, and I have a month to spend it. What can you do for me? And that became a really good conversation to have because you're basically saying, all right, I got to get rid of this money, and I want you to tell me how we're going to spend this money together. So at that point, just listening to what the client needs and adapting to what they needed, just having those different organizations. It was charter schools that came, it was group homes, it was nursing homes, everything. So just being able to speak the language. And one thing I will say is that you have to be academically sound as much as you are skilled with barbering or whatever it is that you do, cosmetology, nail tech. You have to be about your business because you can't be great at this one thing, and then when they ask you to send a proposal, it has typos and you have things that don't grammatically make sense, your numbers don't add up. They're going to scrutinize every line that's in that proposal. So yeah, that helped us tread water.
Now, all these different programs that you talked about, how did you find out about that? Did customers tell you? Because you talked about VRXS, vocational rehabilitation, and Department of Labor, all of that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, word of mouth. I had friends who were connected and in different aspects. One of my college roommate was working for the city, told me about some grants when I was cutting in the barbershop. Some people, worked in different places and they were like, hey, you should consider, partnering up with the Board of Ed or something like that. Every suggestion that came through, I was just putting it in the back of my mind and pursuing it when I had the time, like right after I finished cutting. So, like I said, you only need to tell me something once, and I pretty much was on it. So reaching out to these folks, sending proposals, revising proposals, and after you get one client, you can pretty much use that proposal as a template and revise things based off of what the client needs.
How does it feel being a school owner versus working in the barbershop and versus working a job?
It feels phenomenal to be a school owner. Sometimes I don't stop and enjoy the feeling enough because it's constantly on to the next thing. Like, you set out these goals and a goal should not be something that's easily attainable. It should be something that you have to work to. But once we get to that point, we celebrate and then we're on to the next bigger goal. So for me, I'll tell you, I always admire the story of Madam C.J. Walker and everything that she was able to do for the Black community and, with the hair products and the educational resources and everything. And for me, I was able to change my family dynamic, being a school owner, being a business owner, because this is something when we opened the barbershop, when we opened the school, I kept my kids involved in the process throughout the entire time from when we went, and it was just an open space. And, I just said, hey, this is going to be here, that's going to be there. And they had input too. And, I have pictures of them being involved in the process. So for me, this has been able to change my family, life pattern. I don't know too many business owners within my family. And, for me, this is something that I can build legacy with. I can pass this on to my children. And not only that, I can help out my community because they've extracted a lot of trades that were, if not all of them, that were in high schools. When I was in high school, you had automotive, the automotive class, culinary, wood shop. You had a lot of different things. So electrical, plumbing. And if college didn't work out for you, or if you didn't want to go to college, you had a clear career path to invest in a skilled trade. Now, kids are going away to college, realizing that they're not college material, coming back home after the first semester, first year, frustrated, not having what they consider to be a real job. They have debt and they're pretty frustrated. So for me, being able to solve that problem as a community member, and honestly, I can honestly say that I'm the person that I needed growing up. So for me to be able to be that for someone else is priceless, man.
Now, I want to go back to the Instagram page, because I want you to kind of, let me go down and then I want you to look at some of these pictures and then you can kind of walk everybody through different things. Some of the stories. I'm trying to get all the way down from when you first started.
Yeah, it's a lot of content.
Yeah. Let's see. Now, how did people start treating you when you became a school owner versus, I guess, before?
I don't really think that it's much of a difference. I'm a humble guy, there's a saying that says be humble or be humbled. and I'm always the same person. Once I became a school owner, though, folks at my church, definitely, uh, they didn't respond totally different, but it was just like, all right, I can see that. Like, almost like the writing has been on the wall all of this time. So knowing that I'm able to for them and for me, honestly, this is a different form of ministry for me. Because not only are we teaching you, like I said before, hungry bellies can't hear. So we're teaching you the skilled trade of barbering and cosmetology. You take your state board examination at our location. I'm also a former examiner, so in terms of the person that was proctoring the exam, passing and failing people, that was me. So now my staff are armed with that same level of knowledge, and we have a 100% success rate with anyone we've trained for the master barber exam. So as a school owner, it feels great that I can give back to my community on such a big level like this. Barbering, wherever you go, the barber is always going to be in demand, whether you go to college, whether you go to the military, whether you stay in the neighborhood, God forbid you go to jail. The barber is always going to be in demand. So just knowing that, it's also helped me to connect the dots. Like I said on the interview before, it's the one place where you can have an elected official, a pastor, and a street pharmacist all in the same room talking sports, politics, and religion. And honestly, for me, I'm able to code switch coming from the hood and going to college, having a skilled trade and having a formal education. I'm able to code switch at the drop of a dime. So, it's good to, it's just fulfilling to be able to reach all of these people where I'm going into jails, one of the most notorious jails, and having no issues, being able to reach people and touch people and kind of give them hope. For me, like I said, this is ministry on a whole nother level.
Now, how was it going into Rikers Island?
Yeah, it was an experience. I mean, we've had a successful barber program there for about 4 years before we went in to cut hair. So during the pandemic, the inmates have not received haircuts in 18 months because of the pandemic, because of the isolation and everything, and the quarantine. So here's the thing, because we operated a successful barbering program for the past 4 years, they knew to call us to do something. See, business is based off of trust, right? So if I can consistently trust you in the little things, I can probably trust you in the bigger things. So if I trust you to cut my hair, I can probably bring my son to you. I can probably bring my father to you. I can probably bring my cousins when they come out of town to you and invite you to my wedding, and give my son his first haircut, all of those different things. So with the barbering program, we were able to successfully, have a great program year after year. They called us to cut 4,000 inmates on Rikers Island, and honestly, we understood the assignment. Full transparency. I'm a believer. I'm God fearing. And I understood the assignment, and I knew that we were going into a dark place as a beacon of light to shed light on the situation any way that we could. Yes, we were there to cut hair, but it was also like, ministering to people's soul, like, yo, what's up, man? How you doing? How you holding up in here? What would you change? What would you change when you get out of here? What would you do different? Whatever you did to get in here, was it worth it? What's your plan? What's your 3-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? And folks just open up. A lot of times people thought that, oh, y'all going in the Rikers. I had former CEOs saying, oh, y'all going to the Rikers, be careful. And we were, right? We're not naive. And most of the people, some of the people that's on my team actually did time before, but we were able to show them how to pivot and show them that they had transferable skills. Like, all right, you mismanage your platform. You might have did some time for selling drugs, but if you change the product, selling drugs, the product is illegal. But if you change that with a legal product, you still got customer service. You still got strategic planning, supply chain, all of these different things that when I'm going into corporations, they're talking about this stuff. And I'm like, man, dudes on the block, I wish they could hear this and understand exactly what's being said. There's like a direct correlation, between the two. So just bringing all of that experience to Rikers Island. And a lot of times people thought that we were preparing to go to Rikers Island, kind of like gladiators about to go off to war. Nah, we prayed every morning at 8 a.m. faithfully. And it wasn't, our prayer was not necessarily to keep us safe. It was just, Father, what could we do to enhance the lives that you have entrusted us with for this short period of time? So prayer every morning, and then we debriefed at the end of the day. A lot of times we went out to dinner to debrief, and it was an experience for the folks on my team that we really bonded over this experience, because just showing how you can, just change somebody's day, and there was less violence during that too. One time we left one of the most the difficult jails, it was gang territory there. And when we were leaving, the inmates gave us a standing ovation, because we were really good with our customer service and our skills and our bedside manner, if you will, making sure that we treated them like people. And what's up, King? How you doing? And really gave them that respect. So in turn, we got it back. So we actually are doing a documentary on our experience at Rikers Island. We weren't able to bring the cameras in there, but we got the cameras as close to as we could before they told us that we can't come in with cameras. So I've interviewed all of my barbers, and yeah, it was just awesome.
That's a really great story. Well, I know your time is about up. You shared all this stuff. I'm more amazed probably than anybody on here, because I'm just sitting here like a little kid listening to you and visualizing all this, because I remember prison, I went to federal prison and all that, so I'm just kind of reminiscing. And you said something really great, that it's like it's your ministry. I just think that's awesome. And you're a believer, because we don't have many men or black men, on social media or whatever, talking about God, So I'm really glad that you are giving him, the glory, and you're a believer, and you're telling everybody this, because it's going to empower more people. Because I'm putting this on YouTube. Everybody's going to see this.
Thank you. If I can briefly, thank you for that. One thing I will say is that there are so many parallels in nature between nature and business that you can draw the connection with. For example, when you are, when the power of a thought represents a seed, right? So you have to be careful what soil you plant that seed in, right? You could plant it in fine soil, as the Bible says, or you could plant it amongst rocky soil or dry soil, and it's not going to get, it's probably going to die. Your thought, your dream is going to die if you put it in the wrong soil, in the wrong conditions. But when you plant it in fertile soil, there's going to be a while before you actually get anything that sprouts up. You got to water, make sure it gets sunlight, make sure it has the right temperature. But even when you're doing everything right, there's some seeds that are only going to germinate when the earth tilts to know that it's springtime. So continue to do that same process: water, sunlight, climate, everything. And once you see a sprout of greenery break through the soil, keep doing the same process. Don't stop. Fall in love with the process. If you're in a situation where you're really trying to, just trying to make something happen for yourself, he who is trusted with something small will be trusted with something bigger. The Bible says, you've been entrusted with something small, I'll make you ruler of many things. So just squeeze as much bitter juice from that fruit as you can. If the results don't happen right away, there's something that you need that is in this season that you're in. So there's so many different lessons with nature, the Bible, and business. And last point, if I like to go fishing, but if you think about it, you throwing a fishing line, which is razor thin in this vast ocean where these fish have all of these different options to choose from, what would make them bite your line, right? So that's marketing. You got to understand what the fish likes, when they're most active, everything. You really have to get ingrained in the process. And I promise you, if you give yourself and you make sure that you are policing your time, those dead spaces where you may be watching TV, hey, I could be doing something for the business. It got to a certain point for me where I was doing something for the business once a week, then every other day. And then at a certain point, God would not let me sleep until I did something for the business every single day. And I figured out later on that he would not let me sleep because my timeline, me being in the right space at the right time, depended so many other people who came to me later on my staff or as students depended on me to be in the right place at the right time. And they said so many times, like, listen, this was perfect for what I needed at the time. People told me that this has answered their prayers. So listen, I just wanted to say that to you all. You never know when you're tired, when you're trying to, man, I don't feel like doing that right now. I got responsibilities, right? It's a big undertaking, but it's not necessarily about you. A lot of times it's about the people you can help and who you can minister to.
Is there any particular pictures you want to point out on here?
That one right there with the straight razor and the hands with the hole in it. For me, I posted that because that it's ministry, right? We're cutting hair, but at the same time, it's ministry. We're able to minister to somebody's soul, and everybody comes to the barbershop with a different experience, right? Some people are, coming just to stay fly, but some people are coming because you are the liaison between them and the doctor, right? You may ask, they may have a skin condition and they're like, I don't know what to do about this. And it could be, hey, I think you need to see a dermatologist. As Black men, we don't necessarily talk about prostate cancer and all of these health conditions and everything, but these conversations become palatable in the barbershop. So for me, when I saw this, I was like, this sums up everything for me.
And you can just stop me as I'm scrolling on anything.
Yep. We could slow down a little bit. I've had a lot of women, of lady barbers come to me also. So I always tell the ladies that if you are a female barber and you take the craft seriously, you can clean up, because once the fellas understand that you can cut hair, when it comes to getting a facial massage or being pampered, they want to be pampered by you. And it's kind of the opposite play on gender. Like I had a lady tell me the other day that I like for a man to wash my hair because his hands are strong. So if you think about it, just that opposite play on gender. If you master your craft, trust me, people won't see whatever you think they're going to see. Like you might feel like, oh, well, guys may make you feel bad. Hey, you're a woman. How you going to cut my hair? No, we've given birth to some beasts of a barber and some of our ladies.
Okay.
And in addition to that, you have different genders, ethnicities, everything just enrolled in our program. So, it's just amazing to see different cultures and what the barbershop meant in the Spanish culture and, Black culture, white culture, all of these different things. And I think that, it's a place where we can break down barriers. We could talk about things that happen with George Floyd or you know, or different things in the news, because these are the conversations that we're able to have. The barbershop, they say never talk about sports, politics, and religion. That happens in the barbershop all day long. So yeah, I'm enjoying the process. My man Steve Harvey right there, who's very fond of his barber, talks about
when I had that world famous
yeah,
landing
yep.
with that box cut when I was Steve Tyler, Kings of Comedy, when I had that hair. The dude that cut my hair, I met him in 1986. He cut my hair for $10. I remembered him. When I got on TV, I had hired. He came out there, he started making $300 a haircut. I paid him 10. He had been with me so many years that he was making $1,500 per haircut. I was getting my hair cut 4 times a week for television and touring. I paid him $1,500 each time. He was making $6,000 a week. You know what he was doing? Cutting hair. That same haircut I paid $10 for in '87. This dude was cutting it now for me for $1,500. I cut my hair off. We had to put him on suicide hair. When I had that world famous line.
And he got a barber school in Dallas, James Thomas, his former barber.
Nice. I'm seeing some comments about, you know, going through the process and everything. You know, I will say that you know, just partner up with Chen. You can get in touch with me through Chen or through our Facebook and Instagram, and I'll be willing to help out any way that I can.
All right. Just stop me on any of these pictures.
Yeah. This picture in the middle with the young lady with the red shirt, that's when our graduates came back to help out one of the students. So we make sure that peer-to-peer mentoring is a lot of times it's more effective than instructor to student mentoring, because you know the peer is more so on their level. Sometimes we're so far away from, you know, we got 30 years of experience and everything, and sometimes it takes another student to say, hey, listen, I had a problem with that fade too. So this was a great picture for me, because I felt like a proud father with my graduates who were now licensed barbers and started their own companies and everything, because that's one thing that we teach. We don't just feed you for the day, but we teach you how to fish. And you know, towards the end of the program, we're telling you the difference between open up a LLC or S corp and everything, and the difference between rent and commission. So for some of my graduates to come back and just pop up unannounced, and you know, sometimes we just take a step back and we just watch them go, and we're just in awe, because you know, they're sounding like us, and everything that we've taught them, they're putting into practice. So that was a proud papa moment for me.
All right.
Bottom left-hand corner, the 2 ladies, that's the mayor of Mount Vernon. If you go down a little lower,
Here.
no, if you go back, the one underneath that one. There you go, right there. Yep. So on the right-hand side, in the flower dress, that's the mayor of Mount Vernon, Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, who's been a huge supporter of Westchester Barber Academy. And it's funny, I think we became so close because while she was campaigning to be the mayor, she came to my shop to campaign, and I grilled her, you know, and I said, what would you do if you don't win? How does that look? And she gave me a real thorough answer. And you know, and I told her, I said, listen, you've earned my vote. I told her that about a couple of weeks later, and you know, continue to support her. And every time we have an event like a busy person like that, she shows up to everything that we invite her for, and she's just a beautiful person, beautiful woman. Like everything that we invite her to, she supports. So that was at our graduation, and she was the keynote speaker at our graduation.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you go to the picture with the kids on the left-hand side, right there, yep, that is our first barber camp. So during the summertime, when the kids were out of school, we put together a future barbers entrepreneur program where we taught kids who were 10 to 14 years old how to cut hair. They learned financial basics, financial fundamentals. They learned barbering fundamentals. They did facial massages. They worked on mannequins. They worked on each other. And then we had an ice cream sale where we spent about $44 on ice cream and ice cream cones and toppings and everything. But in the $44 that we spent, once they sold an ice cream sundae or a cone for $4, if they invested $44, it made them about $120. So we were just showing how to take something and multiply it. And at the end of the ice cream sale, we had the Mount Vernon Fire Department, the police department, elected officials come by, everyone. And honestly, where we're in the hood, right? So to see all of this go on in the hood, it brought light to, a good situation. But when the once they were done, we gave them an envelope of $44 that they made from the ice cream sale and a step-by-step procedure on how to repeat that process. So they don't ever have to worry about, doing something illegal to make money. We showed them exactly how to do it and how to do it legally. So that's something I'm very proud of.
Oh, wow. We keep
If
going.
you guys like what you're seeing, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We're gonna continue to post more things. And yeah, just there's a lot going on. It's a good time. And then the middle right there is actually the girls' camp, the braiders camp. And that was the girls. They were learning how to braid. We did the same ice cream sale. Yeah, it was a great, both programs were successful. When you go to the picture that was before this, on the left-hand side right there, that's one of the braider camp students braiding the hair of the mayor right there. So that's Mayor Sean Patterson Howard. And then here you can see the police lieutenant. So our IG is Westchester Barber Academy. We have Westchester Barber Academy, Westchester Beauty Academy, and WBA Barbershop. And you can also follow me at Charnay Fair, CharnayPhaire. So this is really just a great celebration of, our staff loving to have, the students. It's just mentorship on so many different levels. Yep, so you got plenty of content. One thing we realized that some of the beauticians were enrolling in our program. Well, one thing I will say is that when the economy is bad, trade schools do really well, right? So when the economy is bad, trade schools do really well in terms of their enrollment. And during the pandemic, we started to have a lot of beauticians enroll with us who work on the set of TV and film, who, because there was a shortage of licensed barbers, the beauticians were being asked to cut some of the actors. And they would get nervous because the actor wants a fade or he had textured hair or something like that. So we realized an uptick in enrollment from these folks. If you click on that middle picture with 3 people right there, yep. On the right-hand side is our one of our, all 3 of them are our graduates, but on the right-hand side is Angela Ware. She works on the set of TV and film, and she sends me pictures all the time to say, hey, I cut Leon today, or I cut Earthquake. She's sending me pictures of celebrities, and she's cutting their hair. On the left-hand side is Nakia Wright. She was our barber school student, graduated. She's also a licensed cosmetologist. Now she is one of the instructors at our cosmetology school. and in the middle is Israel. Israel was part of the Rikers Island team, and you know, he worked at the shop also. So we don't throw away any of our relationships. You know, our relationships keep recycling over and over. Oh, right there, the acorn. Yep, right there is a picture of my son. But I use this a lot in some of my instructional courses, where basically you need to look at an acorn but envision a forest. You know, nobody is, they say success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan, right? So when you have a thought, when you have an idea, you know, not everybody's going to believe in you, not everybody's going to necessarily support you, but you got to support you. And as this thing grows, as it sprouts, then people are going to start believing. But there's a lot of work beneath the surface that happened before anybody was willing to support. If you click that middle picture with the father and the son, you know, you're going to have generational clients. You know, if you do what you do well, you're going to have generational clients. So this was my first barbershop when I had it. This was one of the police officers who used to come in uniform and everything, and used to come make sure that we're good and then get a haircut and everything. And then he later on had a son, and he brought his son to us. So it's an amazing feeling to have generational clients. You know, being a barber or beautician, really, you just really need to understand your platform, because people are going to invite you to their weddings, their baby showers. You know, God forbid, when people pass, you know, they're going to ask you to send off their relatives, right, by cutting their hair before, you know, they get buried. And that's pretty deep. In the middle picture with the jersey, that's Dennis Rodman. If you scroll up, there you go, right there. On the left-hand side is a picture of Dennis Rodman when he came to the shop, where we were showing, we had this this program where we had kids from a group home. They would come in, and that's why you see their faces are blurred. They would come in, and we cut their hair, but we talked to them, we'd mentor them. So you know, at the time, the other mayor of Mount Vernon brought Dennis Rodman by to be a guest speaker, and he said it pretty, you know, nonchalantly. Yeah, I'm gonna bring Dennis Rodman by, and then next thing you know, he was actually there at the shop. So that was definitely a proud moment for us, also. At the barber school, we have relationships with the homeless shelter. If you go on the left-hand side, any one of those two pictures on the left-hand side, yep, that is a picture of one of the homeless organizations that comes in, a men's home. You know, we try to make sure that if we are going to take care of anybody, it's going to be our vulnerable population, whether it's kids, seniors, homeless folks. So that's a picture of one of the homeless men getting a haircut, and it really changes how they feel about themselves when they leave. So I'm not playing when I say this is ministry on a whole nother level.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Can't forget about we taught chess during the Barber program, but here's when we went into Rikers Island.
Y'all did 4,000 inmates in 8 days.
We were supposed to do it in 8 days, but it didn't work out that way. I honestly, I had a team of 32 barbers. If 32 barbers did about 20 heads per day, we would have been able to do it in 8 days. However, because there were fights, because there was a shortage of staff, because you know, some of the COVID numbers spiked, it ended up being 4 months. But let it be known, we were ready. There's a picture of us praying right in the parking lot of Rikers Island. And then there's a picture inside right there with the guy cutting hair. Yep. So that's part of our barber program right there, where one of the inmates is learning how to cut hair. And then the instructor in the black and white, he's on my staff. He was on my barbershop staff. You know, he had a past himself, but this has been something that he's been able to lock into, and he hasn't been back ever since. And you know, we like receiving folks as long as they're ready to change. We don't shy away from if somebody had a past, right? We want you to be able to pivot, to use everything that got you in trouble. We want to show you how to pivot to make money and be, you know, a resource in your community. And in addition, we're going to send you back to where a place that you came, and just show other people that it's possible. So yeah, so we that's one of the things that we love to do.
How long has the school been open? Somebody asked.
So we've been open since 2019, June of 2019. So we've been only open about 3 years, a little over 3 years. So that's our championship belt that we had created courtesy of Trophy Smack. You know, whenever our graduates graduate, or you know, we have an employee that does really well, employee of the month or of the quarter, you know, we make sure that they get to parade around with the belt, and the belt has some weight to it too. So you see the big kid in people walk around WWF style or WWE style. So yeah, these are just some pictures of you know, the other trainings that we have going on. You know, that's the cosmetology program. And then a friend of mine was doing tax tips for barbers and beauticians on the left-hand side, where we talked about, you know, why it's important, especially post-COVID, to make sure that your business is registered. Make sure you have a business bank account. You know, don't seek to get over and keep saying that you didn't make any money because you have a cash business. But now when it's time to get a loan, or you know, those that COVID emergency funding, you know, they ask for your last 3 years in tax returns, and people didn't really have anything to show for it. So we just wanted to make sure that we hammered that point home. And this was construction right here. Right, you had to, like I said, look at an acorn and envision a forest. We had to look at this big open space and think about, you know, how we were going to do things. How would it look? What would the personality of the room look like? One of the things is that when you are open in the school, the state wants to know everything about your school. What colors the wall will be, what furniture you're going to have. And you don't even have the space yet. So you have to be a visionary. That's me getting a haircut from one of the students. Chen, people don't understand a baldy is a lot of maintenance.
Yeah, I know.
It's a lot of maintenance. Once a week, once every couple of days, you feel that stubble, you know. So yeah, I always have my students you know, practice on me straight razor after they usually practice on a balloon, you know. So you know, that's one of the easiest ways to train somebody. So as you can see, we have a lot of fun. And you know, if you go on Google, you know, and Google Westchester Barber Academy, we have 4.9 star reviews, just about 5 stars. So, you know, we love what it is that we do, and we don't necessarily seek to make money. We seek to make impact and create change. So, yeah, please keep following us, and I promise you, we'll have even greater content for you all. I think you're mute. I can't hear you.
I was muted. So I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us. And I pray that God will continue to bless you beyond measure, so you can continue to bless others and be a blessing, and keep up the great work. Anything that you need from me, you know, I'm a phone call away. Anything you want to leave them with?
No, I mean, I just thank you for having me. And I really appreciate, all the things that you do to show people that you can have a school. And if you think about it, any organization, one thing I will say is that when you have a school, in most cases, as far as the state is concerned, even if it's a barber school or it's a cosmetology school, they don't look at it as just a barber or cosmetology school. You can add other programs to that school. You can add, if you have the right setup, you can add culinary, auto mechanic, everything. At least in New York, it's like that. So don't just think about it from one perspective, but everywhere that you go. So I'm part of this mentorship with Goldman Sachs, 10,000 small businesses. And I'm in the room with 30 other business owners and from different areas, different disciplines. And the biggest thing that they say is, I can't find good talent, right? But if you are able to create the talent, train people from the ground up, you are always in a position of influence because people need that. I can't tell you how many barbers call me all the time uh, when they see that we post about our graduates. They're following our graduates and trying to get them to come to their shop. But instead, I actually have them come into the school to present what the culture is of their barbershop, what it is that they do, leaving the students with some gems. So I will say this, that if you're looking to open a school, no matter how daunting it is, continue to press forward. You have to get used to the long game, right? You have to get on you have to accept goals that are going to be a journey and not necessarily a quick process. The goals that take a long time to get to, they are going to be worth it in the long run. So, if you have an idea, only keep people around you that are going to help nurture your idea. And you don't want to keep people around you that are going to be yes men or yes women, but you want to have the right circle. You want to have people challenge you. They say that you are an average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So your circle is really important in this entire step. But I promise you, if you're committed to it long term, you will create a legacy for your family, for you, your family, and your community. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Charnay. We need to know your theme song so we can end this.